Should we rock and roll?
Yeah.
Stuart Williams.
Alex Myers. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I want to say something real quick. I really love the name, The Better Man.
How come? What do you like about it?
I like what it says. It's really awesome because I think it's nice to have something positively masculine being put out into the world, because we can be better men.
We certainly can. Where do we start on that?
Where would you like to start on that?
Probably on the thing that you don't want to talk about most, which is yourself. I think we should go there a little bit so the people who are listening know a little bit about you. I think that's a good shout. I mean, we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
I haven't always been in touch.
But it's always there though, isn't it? When you've made that connection, you know it's always there, right?
Yeah, guys are like that, aren't they? I've got friends that I haven't spoken to for years and years that I kind of know I could reach out to. Doesn't mean I will. Right. But you're one of those guys. I think nice. I could call you up at any point. Yeah, likewise. I could call you up and say, Stu, got a problem, or Stu, do you want to be on my podcast? Yeah. And we were trying to work out today. It was like, I think it's 10 years since I've seen you, 12 years. Maybe that, yeah. It's a long time. It's a long time since we've really had it. But it's strange. It's like you walk through the door today and I'm like, how's it going, bro? Give you a hug. Yeah. It's like 10 years is nothing. It's just just carry right on. Like I say, once you've made that connection, it can be always there, can't it? It can, yeah. And I was speaking to my friend about this. So, I was not having the best month last month. He simply said, like, why didn't you just drop me a message or drop me a call? I was like, I don't know. It didn't really cross my mind. So, but I know he's there. I know I've got friends there. But I don't know whether this is a male thing or whether it's an ego thing, pride, or whether it's just inherent in our genes. Maybe it's just an independence thing. You know, we become gradually better at being self-reliant, perhaps, and doesn't occur necessarily to ask for some help, but rather we'll fix it. Yeah. And do you reach out for help every time you get stuck, or do you try and sort shit out yourself? Yeah. That's a really good place to start a podcast, isn't it? Yes. That is a good point. I mean, I've gone down the road of trying to sort my own shit out, but then again, I'll pay a lot of money for mentors and I'll read a lot of books. So I reach out, but it might not be through text message. It might be through, grabbing a book off the shelf and doing a bit of, self-awareness, self-study, self-examination. I've heard a lot of people saying you can't coach yourself, but I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure you can do a lot of self-coaching, as good as it is having people that may be a mentor or maybe just a listener. Coaching yourself is a good thing to do, don't you think? I think it really, really is. I think there's great power in it because nobody knows you like you do, or me like I do. Yeah. And I'm not afraid of being honest with myself. Ever. Well, I think that's the first hurdle to get over, isn't it? How many men are honest with themselves, and who knows where to start? I mean, that's a good point. That's a good place to start, being honest with yourself. But how can you be honest with yourself if you're full of shit? Like, if you've got to the point where things aren't going well and it's everyone else's fault, like, what makes you make that U-turn and go, well, actually, I'm going to have a look at what I'm doing? Like, what makes you go down that road? I wonder if there has to be some kind of desire there, maybe some sort of recognition that there is an element of self-deception going on, which perhaps that kind of comes more with age a bit. I don't really know. It did with me more. So for a long time, I believed my own propaganda to myself over, decades, really. So I'd say one thing and do another, but that was okay because it was me, wasn't it? It's a bit like the driving thing where somebody cuts you up and they're the biggest bastard. But you can pull the same move on somebody else, and because you know why you're doing it, because you're in this much of a hurry. You're not a bastard, are you? No. It's the same kind of thing. It's just kind of, it doesn't have to be as aggressive as calling yourself out. But just that constant self-questioning, I think, is a really, profound tool to make use of. Yeah, I think it leads to why would I even bother calling myself out? Why would I bother asking questions? I don't think some of us even get to that point. Why would I? Yeah, I don't think it's even a consideration for a lot of guys. Right. We were lucky enough to be influenced by people like Jeff. Or say lucky, we put ourselves in. We look for it. Yeah. So that kind of mentorship led us to do more of the work ourselves, didn't it? So I think doing the work on yourself starts often from someone directing you on how to do it and why you should do it, and then I think you get this more independent road to go down. Well, Jeff developed this amazing thing where he doesn't tell you anything, does he? He just shows you. He keeps blazing his own trail, and that's an example, isn't it? If he can do that in his life, what am I going to do with mine?
Yeah, it was weird. I met Jeff on Wednesday and we had tea outside the train station. You know, he likes his trains. Yeah. Well, that was closed, so we went to another one. It was a carbon copy, but it was great. But
down the other end of the
And it was kind of weird because I knew what he was going to tell me. It was weird. I was going to meet him, and I knew some of the issues that I had. But like you say, when you start verbalizing your problems and you say them out loud, you kind of get the answer. You get a bit of reverb back, and you're like, oh well, I've just said it out loud. I know the answer. It's strange when you say it and when you ask yourself the right questions, because often you can solve your own problems with good questioning, can't you? When you can step back and go, okay, well, what's going on in my life right now? Simplest version, like, why am I feeling shit? Okay, well, let's have a look at that. Or let's have a look at what we're eating, what we're drinking, where we're putting our attention. Like, you can rationalize a lot of it, but I don't think a lot of us do this. We will go, right, I need some help, and sometimes we know the fucking answers.
I think nearly always the answers are there if we're kind of conscious enough and present enough to get involved in our own narrative, as it were, you know.
Being conscious is difficult now because there's so many distractions for us to make us not aware, isn't there? So if I want to sedate all day, I can. If I want to avoid all my problems, I can. Often I will, until the point where it's like, well, you can't avoid it any longer. You've got to address it now. But I think, modern day life is set up as a perfect opportunity not to face up to what we need to face up to.
Yeah. There are even more. I feel like possibly throughout history we've been avoiding reality as a species. You know what I mean? But now we've got a whole load of physical reasons. You know, I can look at my phone and go, you know, I've got to keep checking that, haven't I? There's loads of things. I've got to finish this TV series, haven't I?
Is that better than facing reality, though? Some people might ask that question and go, well, reality is not a very nice place. So me and you could talk about all the real things happening in the world today, and we might decide we want no part of it. Because it's not very pleasant. Yeah,
it's a bit like a kind of Matrix analogy, isn't it? Where the guy wanted to go back into the Matrix because he wanted his steak and he didn't want to wear rags and eat slop out of bowls, you know. And I always think the reward for trying to live in reality, much like the reward for doing the right thing, is his own reward. You know, you don't get an acknowledgement for doing the right thing. You just done the right thing. And the same with reality as well. You might get to wear rags and things look pretty shit, but you become accustomed to actually dealing with reality, and in time it becomes its own reward.
Well, it feels good as a man, doesn't it, to do the right thing, to live with honour, courage, pride. Yeah. Like, it feels good, even if the outcome's not what you wanted. Like, I go to sleep a lot better, Stu, if I'm doing the right thing. Like, I know, you know, it eats away at me if I'm not. Even if I try and push it to the side.
There's nothing nasty in any closets anywhere. There's nothing lurking. There's nothing in the shadows. Everything has light.
Well, have you got to that point in your life now where all the skeletons are out the closet? Nobody's got anything on you. You can live completely free. You've come to peace with what you've done in the past, the good things, the bad things. Like, are you at that stage in your life?
It feels like I am. I mean, as you know, I had this cancer diagnosis back in August of last year, and that really accelerated stuff. So I'd done a lot of work through people like Jeff, and Tony Summers as well has been, you know, a really great influence on my life. But there came a point where I kind of took the whole thing and started running off with it myself, and I was just doing so much reading and things like that I put a load of work in on working with myself. And it kind of does feel like everything's on me in a good way, in the best possible way. It really feels like everything is on me.
What was the cancer diagnosis? What cancer was it? Where was it?
Okay, so it's bowel cancer, colon cancer, which manifested itself as one day I didn't want to go to the toilet one night, and I didn't go again. That was the first thing I knew about it. I knew I'd been really tired for the last sort of year or something like that. But pretty much everything that I could attach to that would be constructing a narrative, you know, it would just be telling a story to myself. I literally had no idea anything was going on until the tumour became sufficiently big that it closed up my colon and stopped me from being able to go to the toilet again.
Wow, so you think it was living within you for a year?
I'm told it was growing there for years.
That's the scariest thing, isn't it? When we go about our lives, like, we might not feel the best, but we don't consider that there's something evil growing inside of us that could potentially
it literally was. I had a conversation with Jeff back in September where I said, you know, everything in my life, every problem in my life, I'd learned that it was to go in and look for it. It was always mental, emotional, and I'd look for the source, and there was no source. I knew I felt rubbish. I felt
not good about myself and about people around me for quite a long time, which I attributed to something wrong with me, but I didn't realise it was actually physical this time. There was something literally growing in me.
Well, how many people do that? They're just tired every day. I spoke to Tony Summers about this. He said the most worrying thing is that like being tired and run down is now so normal that people have forgotten what it feels like to feel good.
Yeah.
And I thought, shit, that's such a good point. It's like, yeah, being overworked, stressed, tired. It's like, well, we've got to get on with it. And it's like, well, maybe you can live a life slightly differently to that, and maybe you can pay more attention. Maybe we shouldn't feel tired and exhausted all the time. But where do you fit in? Like, you know, as a guy, I'm 37 now, trying to drive a business. Like, it feels normal to work until 8 p.m. and be tired the next day.
And to think about it constantly in between times as well.
All the time.
All the time. Constant.
Yeah. Yeah, Neil Adams said in his book he couldn't go to the pictures without thinking about judo. Yeah. I'm like that with business.
Dead right.
It wakes me up at 1 a.m, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm thinking about it in the day, at night. It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah. It's a strange old thing that, I mean, it's almost like a possession, isn't it? But it's a voluntary one. We invite the thing in that then possesses us because there's something in it for us we feel at the time.
Does cancer stop that from happening then? Is that the cure to being present? Like when the doctor turns around and says, Stu, you've got bowel cancer, does that make you present?
Yeah, we should all get cancer, shouldn't we? Yeah.
Well,
no.
It shortens time frames, right? So it makes
exactly
you think.
Right.
It doesn't. I guess you didn't think about 5 years' time.
No, I was lucky to get through. So when I stopped wanting to go and have a shit, I knew that there was something really bad going on here because I was regular like clockwork, you know. I mean, I knew something very strange was happening, but I had to go through procedures, you know, of like trying laxatives and so on, and enemas and things like that, and then had to do it all again officially via the GP who would send stuff. So there was phone calls every day. But within a couple of days of not eating and barely drinking, obviously I deteriorated significantly at that point. So in the end, it was like sort of 9 days or something without eating and barely drinking. And I just sort of kind of ended up in a fetal position in bed for 7 days or so before then going to being invited to go to the GP for a rectal examination. I knew what the outcome of that would be. There would be nothing there because nothing was there. And then went off to A&E with a letter where the triage nurse knew that I was in trouble as soon as she saw me and had me cannulated and on a stretcher in a side room straight away rather than in the waiting room. I was scanned very, very quickly and the doctor had to come and tell me that there was a large mass on my colon.
Were you surprised or did you know?
I knew something really, really serious was happening because I'd kind of laid in bed for days, barely able to... I didn't even do any real thinking or anything, and I just kind of kept happening for those 7 days or so in bed. Every couple of hours or so, I would have a sip of water and attempt to go to the toilet knowing nothing was going to happen. I knew I was fucked. Absolutely knew I was fucked at that point. And then the doctor's face told me I was fucked when he looked at the scan.
Did you ever think you'd be... did you ever consider getting cancer, like, throughout any period of your life? Because, again, it's common, right? I think it's 1 in 2. But, like, the idea of us sitting there thinking, well, it could be me, we still turn a blind eye and go, wow, it's going to be everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. You know that it's a theoretical... everything is just as a concept, doesn't it, until it actually happens to us.
How's it changed you as a man in what you do, where you spend your time, how you think?
So I would... proceed that a little bit by just saying that what happened next. So when I got into the hospital, everybody who looked at the scan, their face told me the same story. That they went, oh, he's fucked. Obviously, that's not a medical term.
Well, you thought you were going to die, right? But
what it was. I knew before I went in that I was dying. I knew it. And then everybody's faces confirmed it. And I just went through a bunch of sort of strange adventures, like having a nasogastric drain put in to sort of empty my stomach contents and at least give some kind of relief from that, which is kind of about the size of a pencil or something, which is quite exciting, having that shoved up your nose and down the back of your throat into your stomach. I think they heard me several floors away as that was going on.
So they didn't offer you any hope? They were saying, look,
they didn't. They were really non-committal. They didn't say. Nobody used the C word. I mean, it's a kind of thing, isn't it? I don't know if that's a British thing that we kind of and kind of whisper it or say the C word or stuff. Nobody was saying that outright, but we all knew what it was. And obviously there's a point at which they really want to take a biopsy sample and state categorically that it's cancerous, which they hadn't been able to do because it was external to my colon. So I had that, and 24 hours later they put a colonic stent, which felt like having a serrated Coke can shoved up my arse.
Nice.
So that was super exciting, but what that did was it opened things up, so I could go to the toilet, which then, after a few days more in hospital, I was able to go home for a few weeks prior to having surgery to remove the tumour. So I spent days in hospital, really no interest in doing anything or thinking about anything. And throughout that whole process, I just sat in it. I literally sat in it. I thought about all the things, all the conversations I'd had with people like Jeff and Tony Summers and stuff about turning into trouble rather than trying to run away from it. And I'd had a suspicion for quite a long time, for the last couple of years or so. As I've got older, with a bit of luck, I'll be 60 next month. No, this month now, at the end of this month. Again, I don't mean that in a cancer sense, but rather a sense of not taking things remotely for granted anymore. With a bit of luck, I won't be run over between now and then, and I'll be 60. And I'd felt for the last few years that perhaps I'd done enough work that when things went wrong, because obviously my life is much shorter ahead of me than it's behind me, I felt like maybe I'd done enough work to be able to deal with it and process it in a helpful manner when a catastrophe did occur. And it turned out it was true, because I just sat in it, worked it out. There was just me and a big indifferent universe. And I felt just fine with it, actually. And I realised that whatever the outcome was, I was okay with it.
Somebody told me that when they had cancer, that it wasn't the cancer that scared them or them dying, it was the fact that they then had to go and tell their loved ones that they had cancer. Can you kind of like relate to that?
Yeah, I didn't so much have to tell them, because it was getting fed back to them, because it was kind of like, it wasn't during lockdown, but it was very COVID and nobody could visit except my partner obviously visited me. And so obviously she was feeding back to my kids and my family, and I was to an extent with the phone, although I found it quite challenging, demanding, keeping up, regular contact with people. I tried. So they knew what was going on, so I didn't have to say, I have cancer. I didn't have to say that, but they were so terribly upset. It was horrible. It was just awful. They were so upset, on my behalf, and, realising that they might be losing me. They were realising that they might be losing me, sort of thing. And witnessing that was really difficult, because I just wanted to make them feel all right. And the only way I had was saying, I'm all right with this. But not everybody wanted to hear that, frankly.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, if I was ill or not well, I wouldn't tell my mum and dad, because I wouldn't want to worry them. And then if you got diagnosed with something terrible, that you'd get to that point where you have to tell them. Again, we have some strange fears as humans. I don't know why these things come to the forefront of my mind, but they do. That's the kind of shit I worry about. It's nothing else, really. I can handle losing all my money. I can handle all that stuff, because, like you say, there's an inner resilience in you, isn't there, that knows that you can handle that. You're obviously further developed than I am, and you can handle what we're talking about now, or you thought you were prepared to handle whatever came your way. Not sure I'm confident enough to say that, but I think it's the best reassurance, if any, that you can offer the loved ones, that you're okay with it and you've come to terms. I'm not okay with it. I think that's a shit word.
No, but that's exactly what it was. I was saying to my kids on the phone, I'm okay with this. Whatever the outcome, I'm okay with it, and I want you to be as well. I want you to know this.
How many years ago was this?
It was only last August.
So it was last August. So where are we now? So as in last August, as in 6 months?
Yeah, 7 months. Yeah, 7 months or so. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how are you now? Firstly.
Okay. Again, I'll precede that by saying that then at the end of September, I had surgery which removed half my colon along with the tumour, and I've got a temporary loop stoma from my ileus. So my stomach contents drain into a bag. I would say that's a pain in the arse. It's not a pain in the arse, but it is a raw ball ache in a manner. But it beats the hell out of the alternative.
Yeah. Do you ever sit there and feel sorry for yourself?
Not anymore. There were times immediately after the surgery when I lost loads and loads of weight in a very short space of time because of being unwell and because of being hospitalised and surgery and stuff like that. When I was at such a low physical ebb that my mind kind of went down the hole after it. And so there were times when I felt and said to my partner, I wish, the way I'm feeling now, I wish that I hadn't made it this far, because I was just so physically, utterly desolate. And there were issues with managing the stoma bag in the first place as well. It took a little while for the amazing stoma team at the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading, where I live, to get things really, really worked out, so I had exactly the right equipment to manage exactly my physicality and stoma. And then, so I had a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, of leaking all the time, leaking stomach contents into your lap. It's no fun.
Wow. No one talks about this kind of stuff today.
I've not heard stuff like this, but there's nothing that I won't talk about with this. If anything occurs, do ask, because I'll just describe exactly how it's been like.
Yeah, no.
So that was happening like 5-6. I was getting through 5 or 6 bags a day.
Wow.
I was in a complete panic about running out of equipment, and so we started getting online and seeing what it would cost, and then you start realising what the NHS does for you, because it was like I think for 10 bags it was like 60 quid, and I was getting through 5 or 6 a day. So we ordered some, and then managed to get some more sent from the stoma team as well. But once the stoma team really helped me get a handle on what it was, I've literally had 2 leaks in the following since the end of October, and both of those were kind of self-inflicted. One was because I had this initial resistance. I didn't really want to admit that I'd got this. I got this part of my intestines sticking out through my stomach wall. I didn't kind of want to admit that to myself, because I felt like I was broken, my body was broken. And so I wouldn't change my bag until I absolutely had to. So that meant the adhesive deteriorated and stuff like that by then. So I had a leak because of that. And then I sat my granddaughter on it one day and squished a load out.
Wow. So cliche question now, are you more appreciative now of certain things in your life?
Everything. Every single thing, every single second of my life has been an opportunity. Even when I was really suffering and feeling really bad. Like I say, it was purely a physical low ebb that dragged my mind away, but I put more work in, and Jeff helped a lot with that as well by reaffirming to me that when things are really bad, you turn into it. Surrender to it, turn into it. And I knew this, but I needed reminding. I need reminding all the time. I do everything I can to remind myself of the work that I've put in. And then thankfully there are people like Jeff in the world as well who will help us.
So when you're faced with literally like you think you're going to die,
yeah.
Do you, and this is something I don't know the answer to, so you're a great person to ask this question. Do you now squeeze the most out of every single minute that you have in life, or do you sit back and be more content for every minute that you've got? This is something that I'm debating now in my own life. Do I just take my foot off the gas and enjoy my fucking life, or do I go after every fucking second because it could end at any point? Yeah,
that is a really, really, really great question, because there's not one answer to that. I think that sometimes it's entirely appropriate to try and rebuild as many family connections and friendship connections and stuff like that, and to just get out on your motorbike or whatever it is the moment the sun comes out and just go and rip it up and just really enjoy every second. And then other times when you're just falling into bed without washing or anything, and you think, I'm really kind of overdoing this a bit. Maybe I'll take a little bit of downtime tomorrow. So there's not really one answer, I think.
Yeah, we spoke earlier, didn't we, about this? Like, you feel like the older you get, the more you know yourself. The better your life becomes for that reason.
Hopefully, yeah. But it takes work.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely takes work. I know you know.
You never get there.
I know you know that. Yeah, it's not a destination, right?
Yeah, you never get there. And then, you think you're at a good level, and then, like I say, you go and see Jeff, and he reminds you that you've still got it all to do.
Yeah.
Which is kind of hurt, but it was kind of great at the same time, because us guys need something to do anyway. Like, boredom is the worst fucking thing you can stumble across. Boredom's not good for anybody, so there's always things to be done, isn't there? There's always work to be done.
Yeah. And we can choose what that work is.
Yeah, I think we can. But what is the work? So if someone's listening to this, thinking, what work are they on about? Like, we're not talking physical labour here, are we? So when we're saying do the work and there's always work to be done, what are we talking about?
It can be physical labour as well. I think it's rooted. I think from my experience, it is rooted in doing everything as far as possible consciously and deliberately, rather than just kind of drifting on autopilot.
which is a lot of people's lives, right? Like 9 to 5 jobs, it becomes normal.
But I think we're programmed to do that. I really think that, you know, from way back in prehistory, it feels like, you know, autopilot is what makes sure the wolves get food as well and the alligators. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, predictability is what a lot of humans want. Even though they don't. Everything's a paradox, Stu, isn't it? It's like, yeah, we want predictability, but that's the thing that makes our life pretty dull.
Yeah. But with effort, we can strike a balance, can't we? And maybe do more of the things we love to do, and not go down that rabbit hole of denying ourselves out of habit. I'm less inclined to deny myself nice things at the moment, but I'm not in a crazy way or anything. You know, I'm not going to go and buy a Ferrari or something. But if I have an idea and I think I'd really like to see that person I haven't seen for years, I'm much more inclined to just go, "What are you doing?" Much more inclined to make it happen now rather than hoping somebody else will.
Like today, right? We've had a cool morning together, right? Hung out with Neil Adams. It's days like this, isn't it?
Life is good. Life is good, and it's easy to fall into the habit of thinking it's shit and a burden.
Well, yeah, no, it is. And I think what you've experienced, again, hopefully, you know, we don't all need that to realise that life is good. Because it's easy to think that it's not. It's easy to think, well, it could be better. Let's face it. Life could always be better.
Always be better, yeah.
But it could always be worse, right?
For sure, all of that.
And that's the problem with like entrepreneur mindsets. We're always chasing something. We always want more. We can do better. You know, we're in that environment where, you know, this isn't good enough what we've got now. And part of me loves that. You know, it's what gets me out of bed. I'm driven. But it's also the part that fucking makes me tired and fed up with the world and cynical. And
again, this is why I love the name of the podcast. Your whole thing is a better man. I just really love that because it's a constant, maybe a mantra if we want that, but a constant reminder, a constant prompt, isn't it, to do the right thing, regardless of the outcome. Because very often doing the right thing means you don't get what you want, what you think you want, but it's its own reward because you do sleep better, you wake up happier, and you make decisions more clearly.
Yeah, an outcome is starting to mean less and less to me. Like we talk about, it's that characteristics, isn't it? If I know I'm got integrity, if I know I've got decency, honesty, I'm a decent son, it's like, well, it's that whole thing of like the who you become or the who you are is more important than what you do. Yeah, I never really understood that until last couple of years, I think. That feels good.
You know that advice people give you when you're young and they say, just be yourself. You know, it actually was the best advice anybody ever gave me, and I hated everyone who ever said it. I loathed them for saying it. It's like, well, but I don't know who that is.
Well, I was going to say, do most of us know who we are?
No, we don't. Well, that's part of the work, is we have to find out who we are, don't we?
So how do we start that journey then? Like that, who am I? Like, how do we start that? If we don't know who we are, what we want, like, how do we start that journey?
Well, I think what we want is perhaps a separate thing. Certainly for me, is a separate thing. So who I am and what I want is different things. So I can go and get another motorbike anytime.
Okay, so we start with who I am. How do we start with that journey? Consciousness,
again. I'm certain of it. I hate using the word certain, but if it's possible for me to be certain of anything, is that the biggest single change in my life was just not believing my own stories anymore, not believing the narrative. So an event happens in my life, and then I work out an explanation for it. Because I had feelings, and I thought the feelings were me, but they're not. They're just feelings. And then I work out a story. It must be because of this, because that person said that yesterday and it's taken this long to come out, and now I feel shit, and they're a bastard because they said that started this thing off. But actually all that happened was maybe a chemical reaction that I had. You know, we're all playing with the same deck, it seems to me. We all have the same amount of feelings available in life. And they're going to rise to the surface in turn. Sometimes we're deliriously happy. No idea why. So then we make a construct of why. Oh, it's because I've done more of this, because I did that last week. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, that dialogue is always working in my head. Like if you stop and listen to it, it's really hard to turn the volume down on those different voices. It's how you're always thinking. Even now as we're speaking, there's a little voice in my head saying, what are you going to ask next?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Little voices. And you're like, who the fuck is that?
You won't be surprised to learn I haven't got that.
Right, okay.
Anymore.
You haven't got that anymore?
Anymore,
so
no.
The noise is turned down.
Yeah, it's pretty much non-existent because so a few years ago, I just thought this sounded like I was having some sort of psychotic breakdown. But I made relationship with all the personas that showed up in my head because I knew that the bit of me that wanted
that did leap out of cars and confront other drivers or stand up on the seat of a motorbike yanking the mirror off a lorry because they cut me up in traffic or something. I knew that wasn't, later on I was like, that wasn't me. That wasn't me at all, so who was it?
Well, I guess that's how we can get down to the who you are, right? Is what you're saying. Well, that's not me. It's not.
There's a component of me that I need in an emergency. So in prehistory, if a leopard comes into the cave at night to eat me and my family, I need that thing that might just ram a stick down its throat.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson says this, doesn't he? He says it's good to be a dangerous man, but you've got to learn how to control it.
Yeah, and part of that, again, which we've heard from much more illustrious, say, personalities than I am, is the business of waking up every morning and remaking the decision to do the right thing. Because the temptation will always be there to cut corners and do the wrong thing and try and somehow short-circuit the process of getting the things I want in life.
How further advanced are you now because of the cancer?
Much, hugely. It just really accelerated everything so much. So I wanted to feel compassion for everybody. But do you know George Gurdjieff's work? Through Jeff?
Again, just through what Jeff has spoken of, yeah.
So when I think Jeff might even have given me a G.I. Gurdjieff book, and I took it home, and it's pretty dense stuff, but I stuck with it, and it started like ringing loud bells in my head. So I read all his work, and then I read his students' work, and then I read his students' work, which is really where I came across the phrase "doing the work" in the first place. And a thing that really stuck out in that work for me was working out what your chief defining characteristic is.
Say that again, Stu.
It was working out what your chief... So it invited me to work out what my chief defining characteristic is. And to my great sorrow, it was self-pity. And I kept that to myself for a very, very long time, Alex.
I know. Well, Jeff highlighted this in me on Wednesday. I was like, hey, and he was spot on with that one. Yeah. What is self-pity? What is it? Why do we go there? What benefit is it to us?
Yeah. What does it serve? Who does it serve?
Well, I guess it justifies our current behaviours. I guess it justifies our current circumstances.
It's another excuse, isn't it? Another really good hiding place.
Oh, it's the best. Self-pity is fucking very easy to tap into, isn't it?
Yeah. And very closely on the heels of self-pity was being judgmental.
Yeah, I went down the lonely self-pity road the last few weeks. Oh, so lonely for me.
Easy. It's so delicious going down that road.
Yeah. Jeff literally just turned that on his head and quickly told me to get over that one, as Jeff does in his direct. But that's why, I mean, you love Jeff. I'm a huge Jeff fan. He's a good friend now. He's just so fucking honest, man. To the point where it won't be for a lot of people. Like, I think you have to be ready to hear honesty, don't you? You have to be ready to hear the truth. Because the truth can hurt, man. Well,
I think the key phrase with that is the word "the," which sounds like it means nothing, but we attach words like ruthlessly honest or brutally honest, and there's nothing brutal or ruthless about truth. It's just truth.
Yeah, but I think we say that because not many of us are honest. So when someone is, we're like, whoa, this guy's honest. It's he's one of the few. But
when we apply it to ourselves, we can forget all that. Yeah, because it's just the truth.
Yeah. Where do we start with the truth then? Like I say, if someone's listening to this now and they say, look, I'm ready to discuss the truth about who I am, where I am, like, where would a guy even start? Let's just say, take the average guy, for example, Stu's probably, I don't know, mid-30s, mid-40s. So he's kind of like, he's seen a little bit of the world. He's got some experience. He's fucked up, but he's got time to correct things. Where does he start? Like, he's stuck in a job that he dislikes. He's got a family to feed, a mortgage to pay, and just life pretty much very boring, very dull. Yeah. Start questioning it. Like, is this it? Is this?
I think we've nearly all had a go at that particular ride, haven't we?
Yeah. Where does that guy start? What can he do to justify the challenges in life that are going to come his way?
All I can really say is what I tried, and I started trying in lots and lots of different places, and the only thing that really gained any traction for me was questioning the narrative. So every time I would have another drink, for instance, all sorts of addictions, but let's take drink. Every time I would have another drink, why am I doing this? What's the story I'm telling myself that justifies me doing this? Why am I not certain how I'm going to walk home at 9:30 on a Tuesday evening in a cocktail bar full of White Russians? Not White Russians, I mean the drink, obviously.
Why? How the hell? I don't even know how I'm going to get home. Why am I doing this again? And then just be really, really honest. Nobody else has to know about it. You just have the conversation with yourself. You can only be embarrassed in front of yourself, and that's not so bad.
So what were some of the answers for you when that scenario was presented?
It was all hiding places.
Yeah.
It was hiding from everything, from fear of failure, fear of success, all of it. I was grieving over lost, people who died. I was grieving for lost relationships. I was grieving for lost dreams. I was kind of in my mid-40s, say, at that point. And everything was a way of avoiding actually dealing with any of the stuff that I was grieving.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there by saying hide in place.
Hiding place, yeah, always. What am I hiding from, and where am I hiding?
Well, if you think about hiding places, there can be found in booze, drugs, sedation, food, social
pornography.
media, pornography.
I'm addicted to everything. I kicked out so many addictions, Alex, and ended up with two really big ones, which were food and porn. I just ended up with two really big addictions, and I can't abstain from one, and I can't imagine abstaining from the other at the time.
Well, I interviewed a guy on Wednesday, brilliant guy, Alan Smith, and he dealt with child sex trafficking.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, amazing guy. Dedicates his life to helping young kids, and they pretty much had evidence and proof that all of they called them buyers, all the people that got caught, doing not very nice things. They've all been exposed to pornography at a very young age, hardcore stuff, addicted, most of them, and that had kind of triggered a level of excitement in them. Their wife was never going to go for it, as Alan said, so they went to think, well, how can I turn this into some form of reality?
How do I feed this?
Yeah, how do I feed it? Because, I mean, if you've been watching porn from 13 and then you're 33, you've got 20 years worth of experience. The stuff that turned you on when you were 13 isn't going to do it for you when you're 33. You need more shit, right? Yeah,
the sort of magazines that would occasionally turn up in a ditch or a hedgerow in 1974.
Well,
it's picture postcard stuff, isn't it? Comparable with everything that's available. Everything.
Well, yeah,
available online.
They did the teenage journey from like a lad born in the 80s, for example, when the internet wasn't around. It used to be things like the Next catalogue. He'd get his hands on the Next catalogue. He'd see some tits and a bit of ass. And he'd be wanking off over that.
Yeah.
Then, page 3. Do you remember page 3 in the Sun?
Yeah,
of course. Yeah, right. Every guy, right? So that would be his next kind of load of material. Yeah. And then he'd need more than that. So FHM came out and Zoo and all those kind of magazines. Then it was like Channel 5 came out with their little dirty late night kind of movies, softcore porn.
Yeah.
And again, then it leads onto the internet, and that just keeps going and going and going. And before you know it, these lads are watching all sorts of horrible shit
without any idea how they got there. We have no idea how we got there.
Yeah.
One day it's like we just landed on planet totally fucked.
But I don't think you understand at that age what damage you've got doing.
No hope.
You've got no hope. You've got no idea. Your awareness is non-existent. So before you know it, you're a grown man who can't stop watching porn.
With a massive debt that you've got no hope of repaying.
Wonder what you're going to say then, mate, with a massive debt.
No debt.
So, it's like, you can see how these addictions are formed, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like
incrementally, this is the power of everything. Yeah. The power of everything. That's the way back as well.
Excellent point. Yeah. Success as well is incremental steps. Failure is incremental steps. You're right. I guess the reversal of that. Although, is it though? Because I guess, like in your case, was there not anything that came along, or in any guy's case who's like, addictions can take you to terrible places? Is there not a point where, like what Neil Adams did, he just said, "Wow, like I did something really stupid when I was pissed. I'm stopping." So can addiction not be crushed like that?
Yes, depending on who we are and our approach to life. I think Neil had already formed a lot of really good habits that he was then able to use a lot to overwhelm a bad habit, shall we say. I would venture that I had accumulated a lot more negative habits that were overwhelming any good habits I had at that point. So for me, most of it. So for instance, it took me lots of goes at giving up smoking before I was successful at it. I had to keep having practice runs at it.
Yeah, I had a lot of attempts. That was addictive stuff, those cigarettes.
Very, very.
But if you think about good habits, Stu, like if I give one good meal to you right now, and we say, right, this is the start of a good habit, The problem is that one good meal doesn't give you any kind of high in the there and then, does it?
Not compared with the shitty stuff.
No, that's what I mean.
That's whereas, no, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, totally.
You watch 30 seconds of porn and get the tissues out, and you've had a good time. Well,
this is part of what I'm saying about you accrue a massive debt. I accrued a massive debt that I didn't know how I could repay because I'd practiced all these negative behaviours for so long, incrementally stepping it up, and didn't know how to get back. But fuck, I wandered off. I've lost my thread there.
But I think that's where a lot of guys will sit and they'll be like, I'm 30 or 40. I've been doing it for so long. It's too late and it's too difficult to get myself out of these habits. Why would I bother now? What's the point now? I've got no goal that's worth doing any of the work for.
Yeah. Also, the bit of you that's perpetuating that has a vested interest in stopping you from doing that as well, doesn't it? Because obviously there is an element of deliciousness to any addictive behaviour, or we wouldn't keep doing it. But the thing that helped loads with me at times was, again, I remember talking about this with Tony Summers years ago, was when I was a kid, like I didn't learn to drink whiskey straight out of a bottle overnight. I had to really practice that one for quite a long period of time. But on a more simple level, I didn't like blue cheese when I was a kid. But I learned to really to think that shit's delicious. And the way back can be that. If I cannot, I think that's where I was going before, was if I can't just quit something overnight, if I can't just go cold turkey on something, there's another way of doing it. So some people like Neil will go, I'm out of here, this is ridiculous, I'm not doing it anymore. I didn't have that really as an option for most kind of addictive behaviours. I just hadn't developed the wherewithal at that point. Possibly it would be a bit different now, being as I have a completely different mindset now. But the incremental change made it more possible to think this can be done.
Oh, for sure. I know all about incremental changes because I help people get in good shape. And that's what it is, exactly that. It's not, you don't wake up and start eating, chicken salad every day. Tomorrow, you make incremental little changes that compound. It's like investing your money, isn't it? It's like they all make a difference. But I think we need to know why we're doing it and like what's worth the effort. So without something terrible like getting fucking cancer and saying you're going to die, like why do we need that big slap around the face?
I don't know. I'll come back to that in a minute if I may, because it's just come back to me really where I got myself lost a minute ago, which was simply this. All the negative stuff in my life, I didn't have to pay for up front. And it seemed to give me a lot at the time with very little upfront cost. And I didn't realise that I was accruing a long-term big debt that I would have to repay one way or another, possibly with my life. Lots of people repay the addiction debt with their lives, don't they? And the good stuff kind of has to be paid for up front. And it takes a fair bit of effort to go, I'm just going to do the right thing. I'm going to pay for stuff up front and get it legit.
Well, if we all lived our life like that, we'd live very different lives, right? You're right. Like one bad meal, like nothing, no damage done. 30 seconds on a porno, get it, no problem. One cigarette, it's fine. But you do that shit every single day, and you're in trouble.
Ultimately, multiple times,
you're in trouble, and that's how we get ourselves into these
deep trouble, deep water.
Yeah. And you wake up, don't you? And you're like, how the fuck did I get here? But you can trace it back.
You can, and that's part of it. I mean, if we can trace it back, and we can trace it back, it's just a matter of being honest internally. Repeatedly. That's the other thing. You can't just go, okay, today I'm going to fix everything. It's a long-term commitment, and again, tiny increments perhaps. They don't feel rewarding. Have you found that? At the time when you're putting in the work, it's like, this is horrible. I don't want to do this. I want to go back to, just like the Matrix, I want to go back to my old life.
There's an initial little kind of like, again, this is where Jeff pulled me up. There's a little bit of me that goes, I'm proud of myself. And until I'm reminded that, 2 days later, I've not stuck with it. It's like, there's that initial, it's like going to therapy, when you get shit off your chest.
Yeah.
And it feels better.
Yeah.
But nothing's really changed.
Exactly right.
You've just got a load of shit. So you feel good about that, but life's still the same. So
and if I stay in therapy long enough, that becomes an addiction as well.
Yes. And again, nothing's really changed. You just get...
In fact, maybe I'm perpetuating my own narrative that I was trying to undo in the first place.
Yeah, therapy's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it is who your therapist is or your reasoning behind going to therapy. And like I say, does it just make you feel like you're doing the work versus doing the actual work?
Right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, some cases with things like that definitely happens. That it's a kind of masturbation. Is that you go, well, I've seen my therapist twice this week. the ergo I am a good person, right? I'm doing the work, aren't I? But no, I'm just turning up till I'm serving, fucking off back to my bad habits.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. I definitely went through that phase. I know I was having difficulties with one of my girlfriends. I said, look, I'm going to go to therapy and get myself sorted out. But it was ticking the box. So I was like, well, I'm going to therapy.
Yeah.
That's good enough. Like, forgive me still for fucking up, because I'm going therapy.
Oh, and by the way, it's going to happen again later.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy. But there's nothing more insane than doing things that you know are not good for you and are not going to make your life better and still consistently doing them.
Yeah. And maybe even laughing while you do it.
Yeah, but like you say, there's no cost usually.
Exactly. It seems it's cheap, instant gratification. Apparently.
Right. But like, there's going to be no epiphany when we all pass and die, right? Like, we know it's coming. So like, it's strange because we shouldn't need that, like, you've got cancer thing. We shouldn't need that, oh my God, so-and-so has died, for us to look at our own life, because we know it's coming. So it's not really...
But we don't. That's just a concept, isn't it? You don't really think you're going to be dead, do you, Alex? You know what I mean? I've struggled with that all my life, because whenever I think about being dead, I imagine my funeral. Therefore, I'm still extant in some fashion, aren't I? Do you know what I mean? It's really hard to actually...
No, you're right.
...construct an oblivion scenario where I don't exist. It's really hard.
Yeah, well, you can't, can you? Because of the only way you'll experience that is when you're not around.
Yeah, and then you're not experiencing it.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even experience it myself as an old man, let alone dead. And like you say, if you can, then you aren't really experiencing it.
Yeah, exactly right, yeah.
Unless we're talking about some form of afterlife.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to go backtrack slightly, I think that I'd made enough progress. I think I said this before. I'd felt that I'd made enough progress that if something catastrophic happened, I would be able to deal with it. That was okay. I think, and I wonder if I've done enough work. And then when the catastrophic thing did happen, it turned out I was right. So I haven't had an epiphany through cancer or anything, personally, because it was just another thing that happened, and what am I going to do now? And most of what I was going to do now was let other people take care of it, because they were surgeons and so on. So I found it very, very easy to just sit. I was in hospital. I wasn't reading or anything. I was just sitting in my bed waiting for the next bit.
Well, is what you're doing now what you were going to do anyway?
I'm doing less stuff. No, it is different, but largely because of physical stuff. It prompted... So a few things changed in as much as I can't go to work like I did before. I possibly could a bit more now, but now I just won't. But it really accelerated stuff. It made me a more compassionate... I've got a friend who had a similar situation years ago, and he came out of the whole thing slightly angry, really, and kind of wanting to fight for sort of social justice and stuff, which I really admire. But I just came out of this feeling more compassion for everybody and finding it impossible to be judgmental. Pretty much impossible. Little voices creep up once in a while, and I just go, oh, come on. I just put my arm around and bring them in closer and say, we don't feel like that anymore.
Yeah, trying to leave the judgments behind is tough, isn't it? It's I don't know whether it's human nature to be judgmental or it's something we've learned.
I think it must be. I think maybe most of the things we don't like about human nature might be rooted in prehistory, fear of otherness, because there's tribe walking the other direction to us. They've probably got diseases that we haven't had, and vice versa. So we keep a wide berth, but at the same time we need to widen the gene pool, so we maybe swap a few tribe members and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, violence is no different, right? It's something I'm sure me and you would agree. It's not very nice. We don't appreciate it, but it's in us. Like, it can save our life. It enables law enforcement and all sorts of things. Violence is used to keep us on the straight and narrow in certain circumstances.
When Rory Miller from Oregon was on my podcast a few years ago, he said an amazing thing. He said there's people say violence has never sold anything, and that's bullshit. He's such a straight line thinker. He's really awesome. Do you know his work?
No.
He's really awesome. Check him out, Rory Miller. Meditations on Violence is a good place, a good starting point.
Okay.
And he said violence solved... It created civilization because of food. We could go and hunt food. We could just take food there and then. I'm a vegetarian. I've been for a couple of decades more. But he's absolutely right. If you haven't got time or resources are too scarce to be a farmer or something, you just kill your neighbour and eat them. Violence does solve stuff. It does. And I think we have to acknowledge
the part of violence in us if we're going to live a more successfully practical life, rather than just, again, building constructs. I want to be a committed pacifist, but I know I'm capable of being really, really nasty to people. Really, really nasty to people, and so I just remake that decision every day in order to keep the guards up.
Oh, sure. I think the duality in all of us, isn't there? I think we can capable of all those things you've just mentioned.
I think so, but there's a lot of shouting done. Like over the course of my life, I've naturally kind of leaned towards the left. I've got to say, political, I always have. But unfortunately, it seems unfortunate to me that a lot of people kind of on the left side of the spectrum are seeing things just as black and white as the people on the right, and not allowing for any crossover. You know, and there isn't a set of rules by which everybody should live. There just isn't. There are always going to be predators, whether resource or process. Again, Rory Miller's work, check it out. And they are outside the rules, and we have to watch out for them.
Yeah, for sure.
To protect us and our families and stuff.
Yeah, I get it. And that's my problem with politics. It's like you have to pick a party and then you align yourself to all their ideas. It's
you have to drape yourself in the flag.
Yeah, how does that work? You know, I'm aligned more to ideas and concepts than I am to a party.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really get politics.
Systemic thinking, if you buy into a system, if I buy into a system, whether it's religion or politics or some kind of any kind of ideology, the answer is always go deeper into the ideology. The answer to everything is go deeper into this pre-structured way of thinking.
Yeah.
That's not healthy.
No, but again, it's inherent. It's in us to go and find a tribe that we want to be part of, and we feel safer when we're in a certain tribe, even if it's a tribe that we, kind of don't know how we ended up there. It's still a tribe, and we still feel part of something and looked after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really nice thing being part of a family or a tribe. It's a really nice thing.
It is. It depends what tribe you join, I think.
And there's the key word right there. If you choose, I mean, you don't get to choose your family, do you? But you can kind of work within it to be the best person you can. As far as choosing a tribe goes, do it very, very, very carefully.
Yeah, for sure. And where does this trying to be the best person you can stem from? So what drives some men to follow that avenue versus other men that don't even start that journey?
Again, I can only speak for me. I think in me it was a kind of exhaustion. I remember... Jeff must be sick of me saying this, but I was listening to his podcast, his old podcast back in the day that Richard Barnes did with him, and I listened to every episode over and over and over, and just trying to glean as much as I could from it. And I knew I was desperate for something, and I didn't know what the thing was really. But he was talking about a guy called Andy Forrest, who joined I think it was the Thursday training class specifically at the 87. And he said that all Andy ever wanted was to be, I never met him, but all he ever wanted was to be ordinary. He just wanted to be like everybody else. And I sat on a 20-litre petrol can at work and just fucking cried my eyes out. Because finally I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. And it was just ordinary, because I never felt ordinary for whatever reasons that are kind of lost in the mist of time or whatever, or buried under various narrative constructs that I'd built up over the years. And I just cried, and I knew I had to find out more about spending time around these people. And I looked online, and I saw Steve Reynolds' trailer that he'd made for the masterclass at like 12:30 on a Friday night. The following morning, about 8:30 in the morning, I phoned up the number and spoke to Sharon Thompson and booked myself on. And within 2 days, I booked Louise on the masterclass as well. And I won't say we didn't look back, but life began changing for the better.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? If you never went on that course, life would be so different, man. I look back at like your life. I mean, how many millions and millions of other alternative lives could you have led?
Yeah.
Like, from not being on that course, from other things happening, from leaving your house a minute later, whatever it is. It's insane to think how many other outcomes there could have been, where life could have took you better, worse. It's crazy.
It's really freeing as well. You end up doing things that, again, the book that kind of triggered this journey for me was Taming Tigers by Jim Lawless, and the kind of tagline for that was do things you never thought you could. And it for whatever reason, I think it was just his personable approach to writing that book made me think, well, if he can do that, what can I do applying these same principles? And I just went and started doing the stuff, whereas all the other self-help books I'd ever read, all the traditional ones, Think and Grow Rich and How to Win Friends and Influence People and all of the stuff, had never really kind of reached out to me on a personal level for whatever reason. There's nothing wrong with the books, it just hadn't quite hit home with me. And
so many stuff. Once we sort of made it through to Jeff, and I started really just gaining some insight and understanding, and then being able to take action on who I was and what I was doing, it just freed me up to go. For instance, if I feel like writing a story and self-publishing it on Amazon, I'll just do it. Whereas various kinds of fears had stopped me from doing much of the writing, and much less trying to publish it or anything. And now I have the tiniest residual income in history from like Amazon and from music on Apple Music and stuff like that. But it's still a thing. It's still a creative outlet that exists. It's out there in the world, and it'll carry on being there when I'm gone. And it just life became easier to make stuff happen just by having a greater understanding of myself.
I think that's the danger with goals, Stu. It's like, I'm going to write a book. So therefore you start trying to write a book and you forget the fact that, like, well, do I like writing first? It's like,
I hate it.
Good. Well, but that's kind of like, do we sometimes we overcomplicate the shit out of things. Everything has to be a goal. And it's like, well, I want to play music today. Cool. I want to write tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? I think we spoke about this. Sometimes, like, just doing some of the things that are good for you.
Do it because it's bloody lovely. It doesn't have to be a massive goal or have some big, it's going to net me this in 10 years or whatever. Just because it's a really lovely thing to do. Do more of it.
Yeah, and I'm always cautious about saying do the things you want to do, because it's not, because again, that can lead you down different paths, can't it? Because you might want to get absolutely teared out your head that day.
Yeah, like, absolutely. You did much of my life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you've got to be cautious when you ask questions like that. What do I want? I think, what do I want to do today that's good for me is a better question.
Yeah, and those around me as well.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, you see, I don't think out of that little selfish zone of mine.
Well, it absolutely starts with you. If I'm looking after me, so I was talking with Jeff a few weeks ago over a cup of tea and a bit of toast, and it was like I'd struggled for years with this notion that in order you can't really love someone else until you love yourself. And I thought, well, that's bollocks, isn't it? Because I couldn't imagine ever loving myself. I still feel rather like that as well. Why would I love myself? Why would I do that? But I discovered this thing through forgiveness, which is that I felt I needed forgiveness for a lot of past behaviours and stuff. But most of the people that I upset or hurt are either not with us anymore or just don't know where they are and so on. And I tried apologising to some people over the years, and they haven't wanted to know. They haven't wanted me to go round. You know what I mean? They haven't wanted to set eyes on me. So, what I found was that if I'm kind to other people and compassionate, and I understand where they're coming from, even if I really disagree with it, because I often do, that creates a lot of space for me to be okay with being myself. And so, by unconditionally forgiving what I think are poor behaviours in other people, I feel fine about myself. So I kind of have forgiven myself a lot of behaviours, consequently, through forgiving others. And the same with people that I've been a bit grumpy with and haven't really wanted to kind of give them the love they deserve. So I've been conditional or transactional and withheld it a bit. So just give it them. And it's made me so happy. It's made me so much happier, just giving away stuff that I didn't even want to give away. Because it felt like I was kind of, I don't know, making myself more vulnerable or giving something that I didn't think they deserved. There's the judgment again and the self-pity right there. So why am I doing this? Why do I feel this way? And chase it down.
Yeah, let's stay here for a minute.
Yeah.
I think...
I'll stop because I could see your expression was
no.
conducive to a good train of thought.
No, yeah, I am. You've touched on something basically when you said the whole, like, loving yourself thing, I think. And again, this is where I'm at now. It's kind of look in the mirror and say I love myself. It's a flat out no.
It's a no thanks.
Yeah, it's a no. It's a no. I know too much about myself. I know too much. Yeah, I know everything I've done wrong. Yeah. Everything.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys will, if they're brave enough and courageous enough, they'll probably admit the same. I don't like who I am. I'm not happy with who I am.
I know really, really great people who will never forgive themselves. Can't. Feel like they would be failing if they did, and will punish themselves until the day they die, probably at their own hands.
Yes, and I think this is why some people achieve great things in life and never really feel like they've achieved anything, because it doesn't matter what you achieve. You don't fucking like yourself. So
yeah, because you're still living in that then. I mean, the thing that really turned stuff like that around for me was going, have the conversation with myself. Would you do that now, Stuart? And I thought, no, of course I wouldn't.
There we go. I'm a different person now. That was a different person then. Quite a lot of the time when I go back and look at ridiculous behaviours and I go, if I was that person then, not this person now, transposing myself onto that person then, that situation then. If I was 18 and in that situation and only knew what an 18-year-old knows, would I do anything different from what I did then? No, I would do exactly what I did then because it seemed like it was the best option in the moment. Job done. Because I wouldn't do that now. But I know stuff now that I didn't know then. So I'm not going to punish a previous self, let alone my current self, for something that I based it. You think of that reverend, like I think it was a Victorian vicar who worked out when the world began based on making calculations from different parts of the Bible. And he worked out there was like, I'm going to have to paraphrase this horribly, it was something like 4,100 years ago, and it was a Tuesday morning when the world was created by God. And it seems absurd now, doesn't it? But he was doing that with all the information he could get hold of at the time. That was science.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and rationally I can sit here and go, you're right. Yeah. But to make that become a reality where you can view it like that and you can forgive yourself for that is a completely different game, isn't it? And then, like you say, allowing people in your life that you think are going to love you and you know all this shit on you and you don't like yourself, so you're like, how the fuck do they love me? If I don't like myself, what the fuck do they see?
Well, you think that you can't love me because you don't know me?
100%. Yeah. And then if you did know me, you'd love me even less.
Well, here's the thing. If I start now doing the right thing, so every single thing I do, obviously I fall down on the job, obviously. Every little thing, like walking away from the fridge and leaving the door open, I don't want to do that. It's blowing electric and it's warming the planet. But I still have to make the conscious decision to shut the bloody door because I'm a lazy ass human. But as far as I possibly can, I keep calling myself out and try and make conscious decisions on every last little tiny thing. And it's not painful. It's not particularly rewarding at times, it feels. But again, it comes back to that thing of just calling out the narrative and go, you just made that up, Stuart. I've got an explanation for everything and I've made it all up. The truth is I was just lazy in that moment. Not because I was distracted by something unkind somebody said to me yesterday.
Yeah, it's interesting. If a young lad came in here now and sat with us who's 25 or whatever and he told us about some of the shitty mistakes that he'd made, you know, we'd try and encourage and support him to lead a different life. We certainly wouldn't, you know, call him a cunt and tell him that, you know, he's fucked himself over.
Serves you right.
Yeah, mate, you know, you're a disgrace. No one's going to love you. You shouldn't we'd never give out that advice, would we?
No.
It's crazy when we're talking to ourselves, when we're coaching ourselves, when we're in dialogue with ourselves. It's a completely different dialogue to how it would be with somebody else.
What happens if I treat myself as a coaching client?
Yes, I think you have. That's what I mean. You have to coach.
Exactly
yourself.
Right.
Yeah,
that's where the self-coaching thing comes in.
Yeah, yeah.
And I completely get that it's good. There are times when it's vital to have a coach, an external coach, or therapist. But in between times, what we can do then, because I can't move my therapist in with me or have them in my car everywhere I go to stop me having road rage. So I've got to do most of it, haven't I? I've got to do the heavy lifting pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
And I just do that one moment at a time. Just keep doing it. And when I fall back, I go, I wish I hadn't done that. But I'll just go right back to doing the right thing. And that's where it becomes possible to forgive yourself, or where it became possible to forgive myself. Because I'm not the same person I was. I'm not the same person I was 7 months ago. I'm not certainly not 40 years ago, 30. I'm not the same person. I look on my previous versions of myself with compassion, because I think you poor lost soul floundering around in the dark like that, punching everything.
Yeah, I hear you.
And that compassion frees the rest of me up, because I'm not going to have any stuff like I'm not going to have any nasty skeletons in my closet ever again, because I'm doing the right thing every time, because I'm practicing doing the tiny ridiculous stuff like turning lights off or putting the dog leads away in the box instead of just chucking them on the sofa, you know.
I think
because I'm doing that, the big stuff becomes really easy to be conscious about.
Sure, man. And I speak to a lot of guys in their 50s and 60s, and they're the coolest motherfuckers I speak to, because they just know them. Like they're talking like you do. You know, awesome. They're talking like they've got experience and knowledge, and you know they're at peace more than a 30-year-old and a 40-year-old. Definitely. Yeah. They say 20s you just mess things up. It's what you do. Your 30s you start to get into a little bit of a role. You start to find out who you are a little bit. That your 40s are where you start to know yourself even better, and life starts to become, all right in your 40s, or it's manageable, or you're in a better place. And then your 50s and 60s, you know who you are at that point. Or hopefully that's how the narrative goes.
Yeah, I know people my age who are just never going to entertain any of this stuff. They're never gonna go nose to nose with any of this.
Yeah, I forget how many men aren't willing to have these conversations. I forget because I hang around with guys who are.
Yeah,
I think I live in this different world where I think
it's a good place to be.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of like what I wanted to create. I wanted to create dinner with Neil Adams and Jeff Thompson, yourself. Like, I've thrown myself, I've barged in on your company and said, Stu, like, I'm here, like, I'm going to be in your world kind of thing. Like, I think you have to do that.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, because it's not going to happen otherwise.
No, and again, you can look back and think, I'm lucky to be here. Well, you actually, like you say, you trace the steps back.
Make your own luck.
Yeah. You're like, well, what have I done?
Yeah. Whatever the luck is, I made it. Good or bad.
Yes. Yeah. And I've also learned that the less you ask, or the less you do things for return of favour. So if I'm doing this podcast for you because I want something from you, you'll know in the end, and I'll get caught out.
Well, it depends if what you want is to share this experience, which is clearly your thing. You know what I mean?
I just want to talk to you. We just want that.
We're both it's just curiosity, isn't it?
Today's fun. We're in the professional studio for the first time.
It's the first time for me too. I've never been in a setup like this. It looks like Joe Rogan or something. It's amazing.
It's cool as fuck, right? It's just, like you say, it's just curiosity. Yeah. What would it be like to get in a professional podcast studio with Stuart Williams to chat some shit? That's as far as my master plan's gone.
Well, it's a really good master plan. You just follow the curiosity. The only kind of real web presence I have currently for ages now has been a Linktree page, and it says just following my curiosity. Have a look around if you like.
Yeah, well, I know when I asked you for your description, you were like, I'm just a curious guy.
I just don't know. Yeah, I just no labels or anything just seem to do it for me anymore. Because I think that an obligation comes with attaching a label to myself. I will make sure there's an obligation to it. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm just a human, and so I just don't really bother with the labels and that.
What are you currently doing to become a better man?
Doing the work, just staying conscious, do the right thing. It's such a critical thing, that decision, that keeping that right in the front of my brain all the time. Do the right thing, and it breaks open the narrative. It breaks it open every time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I don't need excuses because I'm not going to do any of that silly shit. I will never need an excuse again. And when I do something ridiculous, I'm talking really low level ridiculous now. I'll be in the middle of telling Louise something. I'll say, I saw so-and-so the other day and we were saying this and saying that. And then they said that. And I went, you know what? That never happened. That didn't happen like that. I've just elaborated on it because that's what we do in it. The way we take a joke and make it our own in repeated retellings until it doesn't resemble the original joke is what we do as humans. And there's a place for that. And it's on stage as a stand-up comic, isn't it? But it's not in my relationship with me and my partner, Louise. There's no place for that for me. So I just call it out. Okay, that never happened.
How much time do you spend now helping other people, or do you just concentrate on your own development now?
If anybody wants help with something, I'll always do this. I'll always just dig right in. I'm really bad with small talk. I just can't be asked. I involuntarily fall asleep.
Yeah, I'm terrible at small talk. I can't do it. Yeah. I'd rather have deep conversation.
Yeah.
Or no conversation.
It's not even deep, is it? It's just this is the stuff that matters.
I believe
this is the only thing that matters, isn't it?
But people always say to me, God, Alex, that podcast was deep. And I'm like, really? I'm just chatting shit with Stu.
So what route did you come here today? And it's like, really? Yeah. Did you come at the A34? I don't know. I don't care.
No, bless. When I go out for dinner with my mum and dad every Thursday, we have great tea. But you have to make small talk with people like it.
I'll just listen.
My mum and dad are great now though because I think they know me so well. I'll just sit there quite silently and just be quite content.
Yeah.
I
just listen most of the time.
Yeah. I saw you doing it today as well. Like when we were eating dinner, you're just quite chilled and you just sit and you're content. Yeah. Sometimes I think it's okay to have nothing to say. Like, I think people find that weird about me as well. It's like
it took a bit of practice. Did you find that as well? It took a bit of practice, or did you just fall into it?
It still takes practice, yeah. It still takes practice, especially if I think I know better than somebody.
Yeah, because that happens a lot, doesn't it? We're bound to think we know better. We're bound to, because we're humans. We're bound to think that our world is the centre of the universe. We're bound to. There's nothing wrong with that. But we don't have to actually, we can park the ambulance, can't we, and walk round to the house and not go in with the lights on.
We can, yeah. That's yes. It's. I think that's a skill. I think it's a skill. I think it's a learned behaviour. I think it starts with awareness. You realise, fuck, I talk a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not really listening. That's another thing that takes a process. Because there's listening and there's listening, isn't there?
Totally.
Like I say, if me and you are having a convo and I'm already thinking, what am I going to ask next? I'm not really listening to what you're saying.
That's why I didn't want to do a Zoom thing.
Yeah, I know you're right.
I will not do. I don't think I'll ever do a Zoom, podcast or interview or anything.
At first I thought you were being diva-ish, and then I just realised actually I understand totally. Especially now, this is great, man. I'm having a fucking blast.
This is the best thing ever. Actually interacting.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool. What do you want to talk about next?
Motorbikes.
Yeah, well, I see your Triumph motorcycle hat. I'm not allowed one. It's too dangerous, apparently.
I'm not allowed by you?
Myself mainly, but I mentioned it, and my mum and dad were worried there, so I was to death. Yeah.
My mum and dad were worried years ago, and then the worst thing that could possibly ever happened, which was I got a job as a dispatch rider, and I did something like 500,000 miles over about 7 years.
Wow. Okay.
And I think it just completely desensitized everybody to the whole thing, though, because it's just like I lived on a motorcycle, on motorcycles that whole time for years, no matter what the weather.
Yeah.
By the end of it, I hated motorcycles. I have to say, I couldn't even stand up straight. You know what I mean? I was CX500 shaped.
Well, I've never been on one, and I know Matty had his accident on his. He broke both his legs. So I know people. One of my good friends, his brother died in a motorcycle accident. So I kind of know that there's risk with car.
I've lost friends and cousins and stuff. But I've lost more people to illness.
Oh, for sure.
And addiction and stuff like that.
But my alter ego would have you'd have a big ass Harley, smoke cigars, just be a fucking badass basically. There's something really appealing about jumping on a bike and just going off. And I did the Scotland 500, the 500 miles around the Scottish coast.
Nice.
And if you're a motorcyclist, that's like heaven, man. It's beautiful. There's so many cyclists. It's just so freeing. And you could tell those guys, like when they were riding, they didn't have a care in the world. I don't know how I knew that, but you just could tell.
Yeah.
It was just the way they were moving along, just following each other as our tribe. Talk about these tribes. Part of a crew.
I'm very solo with motorcycling, but I always have been. I think that's where an awful lot of the accidents I've seen have happened, with groups of motorcyclists getting involved with each other accidentally. But that's neither here nor there. Just for my own reasons, there's a kind of solo pursuit. There's a kind of element, there's a zen element to it for me, like with archery or doing a martial arts kata or something like that.
Yeah, I like archery. Archery is a good sport. But speaking about motorcycle, I mean, I won't mention names and stuff, but one of my family members was actually in a motorcycle gang, and it's quite real. You hear these stories, but it's quite real. They wouldn't let him out very easily. That was for sure. Once he was in, and
I moved on before that could happen.
I can see the appeal. You get the jacket.
I see the appeal as well, but there's enough of an individual in me to, I'm not very good at joining things.
Yeah, but that's another good thing. When you know yourself more, I think you'd feel less inclined to have to be part of something.
Right.
Especially if it's something you don't want to be part of.
Yeah.
Because some people are part of something just to be part of something.
Yeah.
Whereas when you know yourself, I think I've got better in my own company lately.
Yeah, very good. That's a really, really good skill to have.
Yeah, well, I'm travelling for 6 weeks, like I mentioned to you earlier.
That's really awesome.
For 6 weeks on my own.
Iceland, how lovely.
Yeah, and looking forward to being on my own, because I can read and write. I'm always a better person when I read.
What are you going to write?
I'm not sure. That's part of the fun.
Okay,
I like this introspection.
Yeah.
I want to write a little screenplay. I love writing about the inner battle.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'd manifest that as a screenplay, but I don't need to know the answers yet.
Agreed.
So I'll just start writing and see what comes out.
Yeah, awesome.
I mean, when I look at who's around me, Steve Reynolds, my friend Kit DeWell, she's a published author, a composer, music composer. I've got all of the ingredients needed if I wanted to make a little screenplay.
Yeah.
It is, you've mentioned these words several times, it is sitting down and doing the work.
Yeah.
And not just one weekend thinking you're going to crack out a fucking great screenplay.
Yeah.
It's like doing it every single day for 30 minutes or an hour. And getting into those habits of writing. Because writing's a skill. You get better the more you do it, believe it or not, Stu.
It's perfectly true. And a thing that really helped me with stuff like that was separating my left and right brain as concepts. So I write with my right brain, and when my left brain, I was talking about this with Nikki Adams, because she's got plans for writing a screenplay. And
when I'm writing, I write with my right brain, and my left brain wants to edit constantly, which interrupts everything horribly. And I have a conversation with my left brain and say, I'm going to really need you on the next phase of this. But right now, not so much. And so I just write it in all its glorious imperfection and mistakes and cliches and stuff. And then later on, my left brain can really do the business on chiseling it and refining it and honing it.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to write a book for years, and Kit DeWell sat me down and she mentored me a little bit and said, look, well, take that off the table for a minute. She said, like, until you can write a good page, you shouldn't be thinking about writing a good book. And so she said, start small, and that's how the screenplay was born. She was like, try and write a good 5 to 10 minute screenplay. She said, you know about mental health and the battle, write about that, because if you can write a good 10 minutes, there's the possibility that you could write a good 15 or 20 minutes. So it's, we've mentioned this about tracing things back, because again, it sounds like a dream, doesn't it? I want to write a book or write a screenplay. You start to write a book and you realise, fuck me, this is hard work.
This is horrible.
Oh, it's
horrible.
horrible.
Really horrible. Wish I hadn't started.
Horrible. I mean, I remember pouring my heart and soul into this book and giving it to Kit, and she was like, it's terrible.
What even is that?
Yeah, she was like, it's terrible. She said it's the worst book she's read.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, what a good friend.
I know, but that's why I love her.
That's amazing.
She's
a
Jeff Thompson of the writing mentors for me.
Well,
but that's why I knew she'd give me honest feedback.
Yeah.
My other friend Mike Moore, he's like that. Like, I only ask him now if I'm prepared to hear the answer.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd rather go to people like that. Otherwise, I'll end up like, because you could go to your parents, couldn't you? And you could tell them anything, and they'd be like, "Don't worry, son, it's all right.
I love you. I love you. I'm so proud of you."
Yeah, exactly, right? So you kind of like, you can go to, and you can go to that if you want, but I prefer someone to just, hit me. Tell me how it is.
Agreed. And again, there's nothing brutal or ruthless about that. It's just how it is.
Yeah, it just feels it, because like I say, I don't think we're accustomed to it. I can't, there's not many people that will tell me the truth's a difficult thing to speak.
It's very hard to say it, and never mind invite it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really hard. Very hard.
It's probably the hardest thing, in fact, to give somebody the truth. And my way of doing this now is only if somebody asks me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd have no friends and everyone would hate me.
Well, that's exactly right. It's the same with coaching, isn't it? I've known quite a lot of really good coaches who've coached me when I didn't want them to coach, without asking me what I wanted or anything, or really having an understanding of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And obviously I'll go the opposite direction emotionally. But the thing about honesty, though, is it's like, in the vein of kind of sitting quietly while there's a group conversation going on and not really having much to say in it, if it's perhaps small talk or just simply that I want to hear. It's exactly the same thing with the truth. It's like, I'll only ask someone who I trust and who I think will give me the truth about something. I will not ask that something of people who've got a vested interest in making me feel better or worse. I just don't even bring it up. But again, that's something that's come with the practice of doing the right thing. It's like, this makes no sense, because you have a really great idea, don't you? And you tell your best mate, who is still downing a 6-pack every night and 40 Marlboro every day, and you go, I'm thinking about quitting drinking, and they go, what the fuck do you want to do that for? You're not going to get the right answer, are you? You're just not.
Well, that's where I'm trying to improve my game as a coach now. It's just giving people what they ask for. Because, sometimes you run ahead of yourself and you start giving advice where someone didn't fucking ask you.
Yeah.
They didn't ask, what do you think about my drinking habits, or do you think I should stop drinking?
Yeah.
They didn't ask for that. And Jeff again reminded me of this Wednesday. He said, just meet them where they're at.
Yeah, that's perfect.
If they want diet advice, just give them diet advice for now. Don't give them any else.
He's so good at that one-liner, isn't he? Meet them where they're at. What does it serve? Who does it serve? All those things are just so they're so economical, the phrases. There's nothing in there that doesn't need to be in there, but everything is in there that needs to be in there.
You know, that makes no sense, but you've explained it perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. He's a master at that. I'll answer this complicated question, like this really complex question, that I think Jeff won't be able to explain this.
This is going to take him a week to
One
process.
line. Boom.
1 line. 7 words.
And it makes total sense.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what? You can see him just process it and go, boom.
Yeah.
And then, like you say, not a word wasted.
Yeah. You don't even have to go away. I mean, you can go away and think about it, and that's probably a good thing, but you get it there and then.
There and then, in the shortest possible format, so you can digest it.
Yeah, he's amazing. And because he's done the work on himself.
And does the work. every day. Still.
Always will. Yeah.
Still, every day.
It's a remarkable thing. A great... I'm a bit leery about using words like inspiration and inspirational and stuff, but it's a constant wow. Just a constant wow, like.
Yeah, and the best part is he wasn't born like that, you know. He was a violent man at some stage in his life.
Yeah.
Like he's transformed. Like
utterly.
That word's thrown around a lot now. He has transformed. And that's what makes him even more impressive. Like he still has, because he still knows he's still got that within him.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he still worked hard to contain that and be a good person.
It's the work of a moment to go back where you came from. Yeah. The moment.
Yeah. That's the problem with doing the work. Well, not the problem. The reality is that one bad decision could set you right back to the beginning. Jeff bangs someone or slaps someone now. Imagine the credibility he loses and things like that, isn't it? Like, me and you know him as a friend. We could probably understand, like, it happens. He's human.
Yeah.
But all those books he's written, he's got so much pressure on. This is the problem when you step forward and you're an authority and you put out this information. Like you say, you've then got to live it. You've then got to live that. You've got to be on guard all the time. It's like the more responsibility you have, the more you've got to watch your own behaviour, isn't it?
I wonder about the on guard bit a little bit. I would question that slightly. I think, again, by constantly doing the right thing, like I say, I'm not expecting any surprises. If a surprise does come, I'll deal with it. But I think I've covered everything, you know. I think I have. And certainly going forward from the moment of beginning the practice of doing the right thing every time, I know there's nothing during that time that's going to suddenly come back and bite me. So perhaps not so much being on guard as so much as being prepared for people. A certain personality type wants to undermine people who are doing the right thing.
Do you not think that it's in you, though, to make a real big fuck up still?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally. That's what keeps me remaking that's what makes it possible to do the right thing, actually. Because if it was easy to do the right thing, I would fall out of it even faster, I suppose, if I thought it was easy.
Okay, but surely that means you're on guard, right? Like, because if you're not, you're off guard.
No, I'm just watchful.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
I've had a lot of, like, failures come about from having even something as mild sounding as keeping filters up, conscious filters and stuff, which I've used as tools in the past around people that I felt were likely to have a negative influence on me and the things I wanted to do. But ultimately, I've found I'm better off actually not keeping the guards up. I'm just making sure there's never anything between me and you like this. Because I know that you're looking at me now and you know there's nothing. There's nothing in the way of the essence of me. There's nothing. And it's become a thing that I love. That's what everybody sees. Everybody gets my full attention. Not that.
Yeah. I was going to say something about the on guard. For me, I was just thinking of an image then.
There is a place for that.
Well, yeah.
It's kind of, I think it's behind me now. But again, we know sometimes that there are personalities that want to be disruptive deliberately.
Sure. Yeah. But like you say, on guard maybe is the wrong word. On guard might be the guy
that's walking into a club
with his hands clenched, looking around, just making sure no one attacks him, like anxious, like almost like inviting it by being so on guard.
Code red.
Yes. Whereas the watcher might just be, well, I'll sit so that I can see the floor. Just, I don't want. Do you know what I mean? Just a different.
Yeah, totally.
Approach.
Yeah, I do understand. All I was really querying was because I didn't want to seep into my thinking. Just the phrasing, that's all. It's only the word. I completely understand where you're coming from.
What are you doing with your time now? Like, how do you pass it, or do you approach that as you wake each morning?
A little bit of both. I find I've never been very big on big goal setting, but I've found that through being unwell, and now I'm about, next week I'll have cycle number 9 of 12 chemotherapy cycles. And so through that, I've found a really efficient way of getting through that is to be here and now all the time, because lots of people who are very kind, and I appreciate it, say, oh, you're halfway now. You've only got 6 more to go. And I think, fucking hell, 6? I couldn't cope with the last one barely. Do you know what I mean? So I tend to not project or anticipate anything, even more than I was already doing before. So... where were we going with that again? I'm going to blame it on chemo fog.
That's fine, mate. What you do with your spare time.
Yeah. So on a very, very small scale, thank you, good question. On a very, very small scale, I will make a plan to get in touch with someone I haven't seen for a long time and set a date to do that, because it ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen otherwise.
Yeah.
So little things like that, and make a specific point of going, I'm going out on a motorbike today, because it feels like I've got wings when I do that. It's lovely. It's really, really nice. You know, I've lost so much weight that a lot of kind of muscle and stuff went with it as well, you know, because it happened so quickly. And I'm not as strong as I used to be, but because I've got a lot of mental wherewithal, I'm doing everything that I was doing after initially being told to forget all of it. You're never going to be doing any of that stuff again. You know, chainsaws and big hedge cutters and big heavy mowers and things like that, you know, gardening day job.
Who's told you that?
Various different nerds and stuff. You know, conversationally.
Yeah, it's weird that they always bring that up though.
They meant well, but yeah, I was so broken at the time. I think a lot of the time people say stuff feeling like they're being positive and helpful, but because they haven't been in that situation, they don't realise that personally, I don't need geeing up with anything. I'll do that bit, you know what I mean? I'll gee myself up if it's called for. I don't need a cheerleader. Cancer hasn't got an arse to kick, for instance. You know what I mean? If it has, I haven't found it. You know what I mean? It's just something that I've been riding out, because the more I resist it, the more resentful I am of it, the harder the journey becomes. It really does. The more resentful and angry I get about a situation, any situation, not just this, the worse the situation becomes. And so I just float through it.
Yeah.
Consciously.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. There was a guy, he's a famous weightlifter. He had a real bad heart attack, and they pretty much hit him straight away with the fact that he'd never lift weights again. Yeah. I mean, he went on to lift weights.
Yeah.
And again, we just spoke about the importance of delivering the truth. But yeah, I don't think you want to be telling someone what they can't do after just waking up after you've had that.
Also, there are qualifications that could be made in that situation. So it's like, I was told things like, you don't pick up anything heavier than a half full kettle. So there was a reason for that, because I had all these, got a bit of my guts sticking out through my abdomen.
Yeah.
And that's held together with stitches. And so, the risk of herniating that and dire consequences is real. But there was no kind of context to it. So it's like, you're not going to be doing that for the time being. Would have been more. But because they haven't been out, they nurse a patient. I know I met every single person I've come into contact with through the NHS, in all contexts, the stoma team, the chemo ward, the surgeons, the oncologists, the community nurses who come and disconnect my chemo. So the PIC line goes, did I show you that? I didn't, did I?
No, you didn't. No.
Do you know what these are?
I'll let you.
Is it peripherally? I'm not going to say that. Peripherally inserted centralised catheter, I think it is. Anyway, it's a 2 mil vinyl line that goes from there straight to my superior vena cava.
Wow.
So the chemicals going through there, and it just drops straight into my heart, and boof, straight around my body. So the community nurse comes out on Sunday to disconnect that, because I have a bottle of fluorouracil on my belt for the weekend, just gradually dripping in the remainder of the chemo after the initial bit on the ward. The community nurses who come out and do that, every single person has been incredible. It's been the most positive experience ever. I've been nursed by people from all over the world who made it their business to make me feel like I was the only person that they in their world.
I know.
In that moment, it's a truly extraordinary experience.
Yeah, nurses are incredible, aren't they? They're modern day angels, I think. I mean, they don't do it for the money, that's for sure.
Yeah,
so
dead right.
Dedicate your life to that. And again, when I spoke to Alan Smith on Wednesday, I was like, that's a real purpose. When
it's
you're
massive.
Yeah, when you're sacrificing everything. He says he does 2 things. He either goes on podcasts to bring awareness of the child trafficking, or he actively does things to raise money to stop it from happening. He said, outside of that, that's it. And then I've got my family. Boom.
Yeah.
I think life's good like that. When you eliminate things, I think we always want to do this, that, bam, 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 bam. But sometimes I think it is just pushing out to the side. I think this is another thing that comes with age. You start to go, well, I've done that. I'm not interested anymore. It brings no value. Small talk, let's push that to the side. Gossip, go. Pornography, fuck off, please. And you end up narrowing your options. And you end up doing things that you just like.
Yeah. Perhaps I do know people my kind of age who don't have any of that stuff going on.
Of course, always will be.
Yeah. I feel like it's the majority. I don't know if I'm doing people a huge disservice by that, but I don't see an awful lot of people, again, like the thing of when you go, I know some stuff now. I've worked out some stuff and I've had help to do that. I wouldn't have necessarily been able to do that alone or anything. It's not a kind of ego thing. But when you see
when you see somebody suffering with or struggling with a situation that you're very, very intimate with yourself, and you want to help, but it only works if they want you to do that.
Well, I had an argument. My good friend put this argument across to me, and I'm not sure what I think to it. But he was about to get married to this woman that, he probably, when you have that gut feeling, this isn't the right woman. Okay. I shouldn't be doing this.
Okay.
And eventually they divorced, and it kind of went, they went their separate ways. But the best man at that wedding kind of brought it up at a later date that he knew, that he wasn't happy with that marriage. Is that story making sense? So the best man was
yeah.
He said to him when they got divorced, he was like, and my friend said to the best man, well, why didn't you say? And he was like, well, you never asked, and it wasn't my place. I could have been wrong.
And that's true.
Yes, it's true. But it's like, at what point as a man do you step in and say, look, I know you haven't asked me, but I can see this happening, and I think it's making your life worse. Like, especially if it's a friend or a family member, or do we just keep our mouth shut until we are asked? It's like, that's a tough one to know when to interfere. Especially if you love someone.
I think it has to be on a sort of case-by-case basis, doesn't it? That sounds really crude, doesn't it? But I'm thinking of two specific situations in my life where I knew that a friend was being cheated on by their partner. And I told them. Right, and in both those situations, the couple stayed together and neither of them would ever speak to me again.
Well, it's like when your mate goes, I've just split with my missus, and you go, good mate, because she was fucking terrible for you. And then a week later he goes, I'm back with my missus.
Yeah,
and
now where are you?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Which is a really nice girl, Which is a really nice girl. Yeah, but it's like that kind of scenario, isn't it?
Well, I've delivered that as well. You know what I mean? I've had friends where every time there's that eyes on me, we go, oh no, I don't know what she wants. She says this and I do that, and I do such and such, and then she hates me for that as well, sort of thing, and it's like, I can't bear it, I'll go get out. And then I would be ejected from the relationship. I would be ejected from the relationship, and then I'd be crying to them that how badly I missed her, sort of thing,
Yeah, get it.
My own absurdity, like.
When my best mate comes to me with his, relationship troubles, I'm like, I don't know whether you, on one hand we're saying talk, men, but on the other hand I'm saying, well, I'm not going to say anything because you're not going to do anything.
Don't say anything. Like,
so you just end up just sitting here and
nodding.
Yeah. So you tend not to give advice. I don't think giving advice is the answer anyway, is it, really?
I agree.
Unless somebody specifically says, can you tell me what you think I should do?
For fuck's sake, tell me what to do. That's a different thing, but nobody really says it quite like that.
No. So you listen and you maybe ask questions. That's about
exactly right. I think that's right. It's a kind of group therapy, isn't it? Psychotherapy.
But what happens, Stu, if I come to you every week and I say, Stu, I feel like shit, man. Stu, I feel like shit, man.
Yeah.
And I don't ask you advice, but I'm piling it onto you. Is there a point where you say, stop bringing your troubles to me, please? Or is that the time for honesty?
I don't know. It's so long since anything like that happened to me. It used to happen all the time. But I suspect that part of the... When I started initially spending a lot of time around people like Jeff, a lot of friends evaporated because I was unbearable to be around. Now, part of that was me being a knob with like, oh, this is amazing. My life's getting so much better. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm learning to be a better man, sort of thing. And it was uninvited, you know what I mean? So part of it was that, but part of it was like, don't you go fixing my life. You know what I mean? I don't want it fixed. This is how it works. You know what I mean? There's even with that's part of the thing with addiction, isn't it? Is it like, again, I said to Tony Summers years ago, if I there's certainty in that destructive behaviour, there's certainty in that, because it's hard to get any certainty in life, isn't it? And so if I know that I'm going to wake up in the gutter every morning, as I said to Tony, with a mouthful of sick, and it's not necessarily even mine, there's such certainty in that there's a kind of security blanket in that.
Sure. Yeah, it makes total sense. Look, people will fight hard not to change.
Yeah,
you're right. Predictability is what a lot of humans want, even if that predictability is I'm going to end up in the fucking gutter every night.
Yeah.
At least you know what's coming.
Yeah.
Because if you don't doing that, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, people don't like uncertainty. But like I say, uncertainty for me, I need an element of it. Otherwise, life becomes very boring and repetitive.
Yeah.
Too much uncertainty. If I go the other way, I'm like in chaos. I'm like, what the fuck? I can't cope with this. So I think you need to find your balance point. And me and Neil were talking about, this excitement and nerves. Excitement and anxiety. They're similar. They're friends.
I think it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. It's how you
chemically
interpret it. Yeah, it's how you interpret it. So we're about to go on a roller coaster. I'm shitting myself. You're buzzing because you're excited. Like, you know, if I reframe it as, oh my God, this is unknown, I'm going to get a thrill. It's exciting. Or I could go, oh my God, it's unknown.
And you can do stuff like looking for some logic and some evidence and stuff. This has been another big part of my own journey is I'll go on and prove it to myself.
Yeah.
When I've made wild speculations about somebody's behaviour is because of that and they're reacting to me in this way because of that in their life. Well, fuck them. Where's the evidence, Stuart? Where's the evidence? And there's none. And I have to throw the narrative out. And then I just let them be who they are.
I've had difficulty with that question, like, you know, when you start looking for the evidence, because I always find like the idiot Alex will go and find the fucking evidence even if it doesn't exist, especially I'm talking like relationships.
Well, that's the narrative.
Yeah, so if it's jealousy, for example,
and
like you start to, you know, let's just say you get a moment of rage and jealousy and anger, and then you start to question, like those questions sometimes, and you could argue they're not the right questions, but they take me down an even worse path.
Big old rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, where's the evidence? Well, it's fucking here, man.
I can only tell you what cured jealousy in me. And it did. It absolutely nailed it.
Which was?
I'm not going to cheat.
That was your antidote.
That fixed everything. I'm not going to behave that way. And if she behaves that way, that's her business. Right. Because I know that I'm not going to do that, it doesn't any longer occur to me that my partner will do anything.
But if that situation was to arise, would that then not be complete and like ignorance to the fact that could happen? Like, you know, when we go in with that attitude of like, it doesn't even occur to me that my missus would ever cheat on me. Is that naive?
No, it's not that it doesn't occur to me. It occurs to me that it's not my business. That's what I'm saying.
How do you make it not your business? I get it. Again, logically,
by dealing with myself only. Because it's the better man thing. Again, it's do the right thing. I cannot step inside somebody else. I cannot... If I make assumptions about your motivations or anybody else's motivations around me, my mum, my partner, my dog, I'm chasing something that isn't there. I cannot. It's been hard enough getting some insight and understanding into what motivates me. And I say I want to change. I say I want a growth journey. Most people don't say any of that stuff. So it's none of my business what they do. None. So it's not that I ignore the fact that my partner could cheat on me. It's just that I don't need to think about it because I know I'm not going to, and that she can make her own decisions. And of course it would be devastating if she did, but I would deal with that situation in that situation if it ever occurs.
Well, I think that's the key, isn't it? You've got to have faith in yourself that you would
in myself, exactly.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Like if you've got over cancer, then maybe you could get over the fact that your partner could cheat on you. Like that's how I would need to get to that point, I think, where like you're confident enough that you could recover from your heart being shattered.
Yeah.
I think you have to get there.
I think I'd done the work. I'd done that work already.
Yes.
And of course my heart would be shattered. But I'd still carry on doing the right thing. I know this because I've been practicing this hard enough and long enough.
Well, when we talk about courage, Stu, like that's the real courage, like to be able to put your heart on the line and be
be vulnerable to whatever happens.
That's next level courage. That's
I think it probably is.
Yeah, no, it is. I've worked so hard over the last 15 years to improve my life. There's still that area that needs a lot of work.
Right.
That ability to be okay in a relationship where you go, I'll do my thing, you'll do your thing, and like if you decide to cheat or I decide to cheat, then it's on that person.
I don't attempt to do anything before it's happened.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it was the root of a lot of unhappiness in the past, the anticipation of something that might never happen. And just thinking about it makes it more likely to happen, doesn't it? Because it sets up tensions in an unhelpful way in a relationship, doesn't it? Because even if you don't express those fears, something in you will let on.
Oh, well, I've thought myself into bad moods before.
Oh, God, yeah.
So my partner might have done nothing whatsoever wrong, but I've had a thought that has triggered then a feeling, and therefore I act differently towards her.
Yeah.
And she might be there going, what
the hell is going on?
What the fuck? I've fucking done nothing.
Yeah.
And in your own head, you've convinced yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you have. And it's crazy.
Yeah. It's a narrative. It's a human propensity to construct a story in order to understand the universe. And that's why we have ghosts and stuff. All the stuff. All the fairies at the bottom of the garden. All of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's. Well, I mean, how long we're doing 1 minute, 1 hour 40. So we'll wrap it up in a second. But let's just finish on this better man topic.
Better man, yeah.
The better man topic.
It's a really wonderful.
Well, it is. The reason I called it the better man was because I think no matter where you're at in life or what stage you're at, so whether you're at the level you're at now, which is a great level, you're at the level I'm at, or you're just starting, you can always get better. So
always, always. Yeah.
That's a cool thing.
I absolutely love it.
You can get better in fitness, you can get better in business, you can get better in your spiritual life, your relationship. There's always something to improve, right? So how do we make more men become better now? So let's take this away from me and you. And let's look at, like you say, our closest friends, our family members, society. Like, what can we do as individuals to make or encourage more men to step forward and live a better life?
I think by doing this, encourages more people to step forward and live a better life, or at least it provides the wherewithal for people who do want to. But that's the key to it all, is people who want to. And then we just be available to listen and talk as appropriate to the situation.
Yes. How can we speed that process up for men, or is that an irrelevant question? That's
by living really well and doing the right thing and being a better man.
Yeah. Well, inspirations are when you look up to a man, you can either look at Jeff and you could be like inspired by him, or you could be resentful, couldn't you? You could pick.
Or easily people. Although I've been around so many people who've been around Jeff at the same time as me, who've then gone back to their life and carried on like nothing happened.
Yeah.
And again, that's their business. But for me, it was a massive thing that I could go away, and I quickly learned with that the inspiration is like monosaccharides. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a very, very short sugar chain. What you need to do is go away with information and a bit of resolve, because on the drive home from Coventry to Reading, you're super excited about what's taken place at the masterclass or whatever it is, or on the self-sovereignty course or whatever it was. And by the time you're getting home, you think, maybe I will watch that movie, and maybe I will have a Chinese meal, and maybe I will have a couple of beers, and so on. Before you know it, you're just carrying on like normal. By Wednesday, you've forgotten you ever felt that excited, because it's just part of human nature. And then you beat yourself up as well, and then you need another beer.
For sure.
Because you're beating yourself up. So it's about taking information, having some ideas of, again for me, things like do the right thing and be a better man. I love this. Those are really good handles, because it's really hard to say exactly what those mean. So you have to make it your own thing. And that's where the real growth comes from, I think, in my own life.
Yeah, and a good place to start, which is something we've been taught, is like, you know what you don't want, don't you? You can get a real obvious statement of like what you don't want in your life.
Sort of, but then you stay in a relationship that isn't right for either of you for ages, because you think you're in love, or you are in love, and you know that you don't want the lifestyle you've both got, because you're making each other miserable.
Yeah.
So there are nuances.
Yeah, for sure.
To all this, I think.
Okay, so let's take the guy then who's listened to this podcast and said, you know what, I want to make a positive change in my life.
Yeah.
Does he just go away and look at what specific area, and then, like we've said, like layer in this, like, well, let's backtrack it. Like, how did you get here? And let's reverse that round to get you back to feeling good. Or is it more of a general approach? Like, I want a better life, so I'm going to work at every area. Or do we start to pick off these things? Or is there a place that we should start? Like, is health the place where you should start, because it's going to make a completely different impact on how you think and feel?
This is why you're so good at this. You're in a different league from me. I've made loads. I've made well over 100, maybe 120 episodes of podcasts of various kinds over the years, and produced more for other people and stuff. And I've always just gone in with this, like, just make it up as I'm going along. But you're really good at joining this stuff. You're really good at joining this stuff up, which is why I'm here. Because as you know, I haven't been on anybody else's podcast before, because I'm not interested in myself, as I've said to you before. But I am interested in this proper, close interaction, this intimate kind of openness of conversation. I'm really interested in that, and you're very good at getting right down and digging into, but what does it mean, and how do we do it, and stuff like that. And I think the answer would be something like, this is going to vary from person to person, but there's somewhere in each of us, we kind of know, if we're willing to be open to it rather than trying to beat it into submission, if we're willing to be open to the little voices in our head, we know usually the bit of me that wants to do road rage, I know that's not the biggest part of me. The bit of me that wants to maybe start drinking again or smoking again, I know that's not the biggest part of me. So maybe a little bit of elimination and stuff, and you start getting to a core of a central truth that can help us identify the kind of human we really want to be.
Yes, even the road rage. So I totally get it. Like, what man would want to be, committing road rage daily? None. But like, I think if I just said to a guy, stop doing road rage, they,
right.
with all good intent, they go, yeah, but it would happen. So I would look at this and go, I think men like steps. I think they like to know what path they're on. So my answer to this would be, well, let's spend the first quarter of the year or 90 days improving your nutrition and physical health, because I think that will have an immediate impact on how someone feels.
I do agree.
Yeah, so if you feel better, Stu, you're less likely to wind down your window and call someone a cunt.
And climb out of it.
Yes, if you feel good. Like, that makes total sense to me. I can piece together some steps for a guy to do. Right, well, let's do this first, and then we'll reevaluate. And then, I think just the whole like improve yourself thing is a good message, but I don't think it's enough guidance.
It's not nuanced enough.
Yeah, it's too much, because if you've got all sorts going on in your life, like financial stress, you're not being the father you want to be.
Well, there's one right there is starting to lose the debt.
Yes.
I mean, that was absolutely huge for us, was going, okay, we're done. We're not going to accrue any more debt. And we haven't got any more debt. Some years late, no debt. And it takes such a weight off you that allows a space for you to be feeling good in.
Yeah, I mean, finance is one of the biggest things people worry about. So again, it makes sense to get that in order. But that's what I mean. There could be.
No, that's very good.
If you're at the bottom of the pile, or you feel like you're at the bottom of the pile, and you're, like I say, you're overweight and in debt and stressed, and you're not being a good father or a good husband, you're like, what? Where the fuck do I start? So I think always starting with what you can control. The physical body is always my route in. It's my gate. It's my pathway in for every guy.
You're going to get, no matter what else happens, you're going to get benefits from that. You are.
There's no downside.
There's no real way of measuring that in any of the other areas we've talked about until perhaps many years later.
There's no downside.
There's definite payback very quickly from what you're describing here, which I think is phenomenal advice.
Yeah, I think it's a good place, and it's a good way in. You know, if you've got a little bit of machoism out there which you're trying to break down, but you say, well, let's come and lift some weights and let's take that aggression and put it into the gym. Yeah, it's a way in. So that's why I love Jeff. It was like he used to be the guy that used to smack people and jump on their head. Yeah, first. So I was like, oh,
first thing.
Yeah, he can talk to me in that rough and ready language, and I can do that with my guys a bit. I can talk. You know, I can swear. I've got tattoos. I've got skinhead. Do you know what I mean? I can be a little bit rough and ready, but then we can go into the spiritual stuff, and when they don't expect it, they listen.
Yeah,
because they don't assume those words are going to come out of my mouth. So we speak quite deeply and intimately inside of the program.
Yeah,
but I don't put it on the front end. I don't put that on my public profile. You know, I don't say that we talk about this stuff. The podcast is probably the deepest I'll go publicly. But once you're in that group, we tackle some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But on the front end, it's like, come on, dude, let's go. Let's get you stronger. Yeah. Let's get you fitter. You know,
that's a great in. That's fantastic.
It's just a way in.
That's really, really smart.
It's just a way in.
Really smart,
mate. I've had a blast.
Me too.
It's been fun, huh?
Me too.
We've been speaking for nearly 2 hours.
Yeah.
I feel like Joe Rogan, the English Joe Rogan, the commentarian Joe Rogan.
Yeah. This is really awesome, man.
You're
really
a good
awesome.
Man. Thank you for your time.
You too.
I've got a lot of time for you. Thank you. I think we'll wrap this up.
Nice.
Cheers, Stu.
Cheers, Alex. Thanks so much. That's really awesome.